there's a lot to like about David Ojabo, especially when you consider the athletic package, the physical traits, the newness to the game, and what he had shown at this point in his career.
We need to have a conversation about Michigan pass rusher David Ojabo. 6'0", 250 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, 4.55 verified. Had the injury at the Michigan Pro Day. And it's unfortunately thrown a lot of cold water on what was one of the more exciting developments from defensive prospects in this year's class. So I'd like you guys to kind of reflect on David Ojabo, the pass rusher and the player, before we talk about how the injury is going to impact him in this year's class. So especially with the fun foil that existed with Aiden Hutchinson and those two guys with differing styles of play, what did you like most about David Ojabo?
Well, David Ojabo was always a bet-on-traits guy for me. New to playing football still. And I think when you consider that and you see some of the high-level flashes of what he's capable of as a pass rusher with stringing together moves and having good vision and just a lot of savvy for how he gets to the edges of blocks and was able to win, that's where I got excited about the upward mobility with a guy like David Ojabo, who had some flashes as a run defender, and I thought that was going to be an issue when I watched him on tape. Like, while kind of not the biggest defensive end, new to the game, I thought he was going to get worked in the run game, and I didn't really see that. And so there's a lot to like about David Ojabo, especially when you consider the athletic package, the physical traits, the newness to the game, and what he had shown at this point in his career.
He's be 6'4", he bends very well.
Yeah. Explosive
rusher. I call him a kind of a juiced-up Chandler Jones because he uses that length well. He has just an innate ability to contort his body, the fluidity and flexibility in his core and his torso and his hips to just kind of turn and detach upper body and lower body to win the edge. And then, like you said, those flashes against the run. He's a guy that from his traits, you want to see him fully develop. That's why the injury really sucks, because we're not going to be able to see him early on in his career. But the ceiling is really high for him. And he, in my opinion, he took a lot of pressure off of Aiden Hutchinson, because you couldn't just, slide protection to Aiden. You had to worry about David Ojabo every time he stepped on the field.
He's the kind of defender that, can really, really make a lot of problems for your offensive line. He has every trait that you can't coach, right? He has it all in the bag. He's long, he's explosive. As you mentioned, his flexibility, his ability to bend, his overall body control is outstanding for a guy who has that kind of size and length. And he actually, for a speed rusher, he has some nice blend of power to him. You see him with the bull rush. You see him convert speed to power when he's rushing. And even when, Joe, as you mentioned, when he's setting the edge against the run. And so he flashes a complete skill set with some of the high-end athletic traits that for him is just putting it all together, right? Continuing refining his hands, continuing stringing together rush moves, and it's all progression. And it's a shame, that the injury happened, because he was a player that, as evaluators, we were so happy and excited to see him jump on the scene. Because we weren't talking about Ojabo, in the summer. We weren't talking about him, even early in the fall. And he was a new name with a guy that, just has so much upward potential. And so, to me, when you're predictively talking about where he might land in the draft and what his kind of range is going to be, I still wouldn't be completely shocked to hear him top of round 2, right? Because the athletic upside is so high. You think about like Jeffrey Simmons, and Jeffrey Simmons, before he suffered his injury, he was going to be a top 5 pick. The Titans still took him in the 20s, and it's obviously paid off. And so when you have a player like Ojabo, who's injury or not, his best football was probably going to be in year 2 or year 3, you still feel pretty good taking him, even though he's going to be missing his rookie year.
Yeah, it's certainly the concerns that exist with David are about consistency at the point of attack. I would agree with the perception that you see the ability to anchor, but there's also instances where he's getting blocked by a tight end and he kind of gets the lockout, and it's like, okay, what do I do, right? Like, I got to wait for the back to declare, and like, it wasn't the sense of I'm patient and holding my gap. It was like my eyes came up and I started looking around, and then I lose my leverage, and then I lose control of the block. So getting improvement in that aspect, Joe mentioned at the very top, this is a guy who's played football for a very long time.
Right.
You need reps. So that's the part for me that I think is the cold water on David, in that he's only going to get mental reps, and I think he needs physical reps to continue to get better. Joe, you always talk about time on task, right? And you can get time on task in the film room, but muscle memory only comes from doing. And I think that's the thing with David, that we're just probably going to have to be patient as far as what his first year of availability looks like, because Brentley, I think you're absolutely right. This is a 3-year projection player. This is not a 1-year projection player. But the instincts that are there as a pass rusher already are like overwhelmingly good. The nose for the football when he's converting power and he's running through that outside shoulder, that offensive tackle, and he's getting run past the quarterback because he's not completely disengaged, and he still manages to swipe that football out. How many forced fumbles did he have this year when
It was a requirement every time
when
he got a sack,
was
yeah.
engaged with the offensive tackle? Like, he's engaged with the blocker and still getting strip sacks.
Very Chandler Jones.
Yes.
So, no, I was going to say, just as far as his draft grade and, people saying he may slip into the second round, which I can understand, right, a torn Achilles. But for me, the grade would be exactly the same because, like we talked about, he was a projection from the beginning as far as we put it into context, right, talking about, man, probably on rundowns, we're not sure if we want this guy on the field. But the upside is so high that you still draft this guy. So if I'm sitting there at 15, 20, I still may take this guy because I knew he was going to be a project anyway, but that upside is tremendous. Like, this guy had 12 to 15 sacks. Like, on any other team, he would be the key guy. It just so happened that Aiden Hutchinson was on the other side and stole some of the spotlight. But just some of the things that this guy, functional athleticism at that outside linebacker position, it may be unmatched in this draft. Just some of the things he was able to do and ways he was able to contort his body.
Don't call this guy the other Michigan pass rusher.
Yeah.
This guy's his own dude, and he's going to make some team really happy. We just unfortunately might not see it in 2022. David Ojabo, University of Michigan.